Hello, this is Kyou of the Kyou system. I wanted to make a point of recording this episode today, even though I just recorded and uploaded another one, because today, July 8th, 2022, is the third anniversary of the release of my game Remembrance. Now, I don't know if you have played Remembrance or not. I'm assuming that if you are subscribed to my YouTube channel and are watching these videos, you are probably at least familiar with it. But regardless, normally on Remembrance's anniversary for the past few years, I've made a point of either writing a blog post about it or drawing a picture or two of Kim or one of the other characters, perhaps. But regrettably, I have not had time or energy over the past couple of days to dedicate to doing anything like that. But since I've started doing these somewhat, when I say somewhat, these very much improvisational uh, podcast recordings like this, I figured this would be a much easier way, a much more readily accessible way for me to do my normal yearly routine. Because this is, to be honest, this is a lot lower effort for me to do. Not to say that I don't want to put effort into it or that I don't put any effort into it, but more so just a matter of like, I wanted to. It's easier for me to get this done and to do it in a timely fashion to where I will be able to actually have something out for the day for the actual anniversary. But anyway, now again, I don't know if you're familiar with Remembrance or not, but I'll talk a little bit about it in any case. So, Remembrance is the story of a woman named Kimberly Warren, and she wakes up in this rather strange sort of place with clouds far below her, some sort of floating platform. She quickly crosses paths with this entity calling herself Jessie, who can apparently use magic, and has been waiting for Kim for a fairly long amount of time, and because Kim has apparently been chosen for some mission or another. Now, Kim is obviously pretty confused because she wakes up with no memory of how she got there, really, of what has been going on in her life, just in general. The classic sort of amnesia trope, right? And of course, as the title suggests, as Kim progresses on this mission of hers, she slowly, well, not slowly, but she remembers segments of her memory as she completes each of the major tasks of her mission. And, acts of remembrance, you could say. And now, not all of her memories, however, seem to make quite sense to her, because as she goes along in this mission, she not only has the segments of memory that she remembers as she completes parts of the mission, but there are other memories that come to her, memories that are much perhaps more abstract, memories that are very, very familiar to her, very like overpowering with nostalgia, but that don't seem to fit in with any of the other memories that she recalls as she completes her mission. A strange sort of incongruity between the two that she can't seem to resolve, and yet the memories that she's recalling as she goes along, or these nostalgic memories that come to her, feel almost more powerful and more real to her than her actual memories of her life. Now, what could that mean? Well, if you play the game, you'll find out. Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but nevertheless, that's the general premise of Remembrance. And as she goes along, other characters show up, different things happen. But the main thing, that's kind of the main overarching plot. Now, with Remembrance, especially if you've played through it, or I guess watched a Let's Play of it, I still can't believe that people actually recorded Let's Plays of it. Very flattered. But nevertheless, if you've seen the major plot points of Remembrance, it's probably pretty clear to you that a lot of the writing that went into it, was me processing a lot of things that happened to me in my life. I won't go into too much detail there because, again, I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't played through it if they are interested. And it's also, well, something that I'd rather not dwell on too much, to be honest. But nevertheless, when I first started writing Remembrance, that wasn't why I started it. I don't think that it pretty early on into development, that was what the kind of the direction it went into. But the original inspiration that made me start working on Remembrance in the first place was actually a dream that I had. Oh, excuse me. A dream that I had while I was also up in upstate New York. This was, again, 5-ish years ago, and in this dream, I awoke and found myself in this pitch black room at the very bottom of a structure that I knew somehow was a tower. And when I woke up in this room, it was clear to me, just intuitively or instinctively, that I needed to climb up. And there was only one way out of the room anyway. It was a flight of stairs going upward. So up I went. And I went and I went and I climbed up and up and up and up. And in the dream, the base of the tower was a flat, lusterless pitch black, and the very top of the tower was a brilliant glowing white. And it was a steady gradient going from dark to light from as you ascended the tower. And as I went further up and up, I went through any number of labyrinths, any number of stairwells, long stretches of hallways, and eventually reaching a balcony when I was pretty close to the top of that point. There was a balcony, and as I stepped out, I was completely swept away by the view of the landscape. It was completely unfamiliar to me, nothing I recognized, but it was beautiful and serene in a way, and so familiar, so familiar. But obviously, even in all of my other experiences in life, I'd never been in any buildings or structures like that tower, and I'd never looked out on a balcony and been struck by the landscape view spread before me like that. So, and I talked about this in one of the other episodes where it's like I think I know what might have inspired it, but just the actual experience of the dream itself, the impact that it had on me, I can't even begin to describe it. And it was the sort of dream that when I had it, it left such a powerful impact on me that I just was, when I woke up, I physically was like forced up into a sitting position. Like I bolted up out of the dream, and it was just like, very, very overwhelming kind of feeling, suffice it to say. So much so that I promptly, I went back to sleep, I'm pretty sure, but the following day, I opened up Steam, and I went to the copy of RPG Maker 2003 that I'd picked up for $2 on a Steam sale, over a year ago or some such. And I knew then and there, it's like, or as soon as I woke up from the dream, really, that it's like, I need to make this real. I need to to convey this. I need to like bring this idea, this impression in my mind into a material form, and it felt very important to me that I did that. Now at that point, for all the games that I had played, for all the ROM hacking that I did when I was younger, I had never made a video game before. I had never used RPG Maker before. I had never made any digital art before. I mean, earlier in that year, I had started like doodling, like drawing stuff with traditional art just to practice every day. Trying to get back into it after years of just not doing it. But even then, I was not a very skilled artist by any stretch of the imagination. I never made music before. I had no training, no. I mean, I took choir when I was like in elementary school, right? But I had never played any musical instruments at that point. I had taken no formal music training at that point. Nothing. I had no background in making video games other than writing. I've been writing for years before that point, but that was it. And nevertheless, I dove right into it, and I learned as I went along. But that was how powerful the idea was. That's how powerful the dream was. Now it wasn't a vivid dream, but it was so very lucid that it was maybe like a hair's breadth away from being a proper lucid dream. Even to this day, I can still see parts of it clearly, clear as day. Which reminds me, there are other dreams I've had that are like that I could talk about, but that's for another day. Now, interestingly enough, the original prototype that I made for Remembrance was very different from how the final game turned out. When I first started making it, it was much closer to how the actual dream was. Now, unfortunately, I was not nearly as good or clever at game design then as I am now. So that idea, I wasn't really able to do that idea justice, and I ended up scrapping a lot of it. But one thing that was interesting, that I'm not sure exactly why I designed it this way, but I did nonetheless, was that the main character was originally not Kim. The main character was originally this girl named Jubilant, another character of mine, who met up with Kim, because Kim was already in the basement of the tower, and Jubilant just appeared there and met up with Kim, who agreed to basically escort her to the top of the tower. And interestingly enough, the concept that I had originally for Kim, which changed quite a bit for the final version of Remembrance, Kim, as she is conceived in Permanence, or at least the original, well, Permanence is in flux right now, but the original idea that I have in mind for Kim in Permanence, the sequel to Remembrance, is actually very, very close to the original idea that I had for the original inspiration, the original vision, I should say, that I had for her. And you can get if you're interested, you can get a better picture of what that is like by reading the short story, the flash fiction, really, that I wrote titled The Solitary Soldier, up on my website if you're curious. But yes, it was the original idea. Remembrance changed a lot over the course of its development. I rewrote it at least 3 or 4 times. But I'm very happy with how it turned out. And it's hard to believe that it's already been 3 years, but in some ways, considering everything that's happened since July 2019, it almost feels like it's been much longer than 3 years. But nevertheless, Remembrance is still very dear to me even to this day. And if you haven't played it, it is available for free for download from my itch page or my website, or on rpgmaker.net, I think. But regardless of whether you choose to peruse, I hope this episode has found you well, and that you are doing well, and that you have a wonderful rest of your day or night. Take care.